where I've been all day, but anyway. Thank you for joining us. I know the weather's like dreadful, so thanks for those that have driven over because the roads are quite flooded. So I appreciate everybody turning up, which is brilliant. And thank you to everybody online for joining as well. For those of you in the room, just a few housekeeping notes. Toilets are through that door to the left. I'm looking for somebody at Opencast yet. Fire exit is here or out of reception if we need to, and the assembly room, the assembly space is by Cake Stories, which is the shipping container coffee shop that you'll have seen when you've came in. For those of you online, I'm sure you all know where your toilets are and where your fire exits are. If you do want captions, if you're on Zoom, I believe there is a CC button on your right-hand side. If you want to click on that, you should be able to get captions. So you can follow what's going on this afternoon. So today's session, sorry, I should introduce myself, how rude. My name's Jill McKinney. I wear two hats. One is Head of Skills at Sunderland Software City, and the other is Director of Dynamo Northeast. And obviously this event is part of the really exciting TechNExt Festival, our first one, which is absolutely booming so far. Opencast have played a massive part in that to date. You'll all be looking forward to a glass of wine on Friday or Thursday, I'm sure, after all of the events that you've been doing. So this session really is to talk about different routes into tech and the different skills, how you can transfer those, and talking about those squiggly careers that a lot of people have, and knowing that it's okay to change and move and pivot and take different journeys. There isn't a linear route. There's no kind of right or wrong way. In fact, we add a lot of value when we come from different sectors and different job roles. We've got some brilliant panelists. We've got 3 here. We've got 1 online. Judith, has she joined us yet? Yeah. Hi, Judith. Sorry, I couldn't see you there. And we've also got Sarah Ellis, which I'll introduce in a second, who you've just seen her face there. So without further ado, I'd like our panelists just to introduce themselves and just tell us who you are, what your job role is, and pass on to the next person. So if we can start with Emily.
Yep. Emily, Head of User Centered Design at Software.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Hazel. I'm a Senior Consultant User Research, also at Opencast Software.
I'm Sinead. I'm a Senior Consultant Software Developer at Opencast, and I'll pass to Judith.
Hi, I'm Judith. I'm a Senior Consultant Agile Delivery Manager at Opencast.
Thank you. Okay, so before we hear from our fantastic lineup of panelists, I am going to hand over to Sarah Ellis, who is author of not 1, but 2 Sunday Times bestsellers, Squiggly Career and You Coach You, and is also co-founder of Amazing If. And I'd like you to give us an introduction of Squiggly Careers, why they're important, and what employers can do to help.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your event today. My face looks very big on that screen, so I hope that's not too intimidating. It does look quite big though. So what are Squiggly Careers and why do they matter? Well, I think for so long, everybody refers back to ladders and staircases when we think of what a successful squiggly career should look like. We think of following in other people's footsteps, progression has to equal promotion, and this sense that we should all want the same thing in the same way at the same time. And we know now from working with millions of people all across the world, nobody describes their career as linear, predictable. Oh, there's just so much certainty. I know exactly what to do and where to go. If only it was that easy, right? And so instead we are faced with, the challenges of all the uncertainty, complexity and change that is now something we get used to. That's not going anywhere. And within that context, we want careers that are as individual and as brilliant as you all are. So we really want to think about personal careers. We want you to feel like you're sort of drawing your own squiggle in a way that works for you. And there's a brilliant quote from the World Economic Forum where they say, we used to go to work to learn to do a job, and now learning is the job. And I think that really sums up the unlearning and relearning that we're all now doing in our squiggly careers. There's new skills that we don't know that we need yet. And at the same time, we want to make our strengths stronger. We're going to have 4 or 5 different types of career. And that is now a conservative estimate. When I first started saying that, nobody would listen to us back in 2013. Who remembers that year? But when we used to talk about squiggly careers, everyone was like, no, it's all about layers and ladders and hierarchy. Now we spend very little time convincing people that careers are squiggly. What we spend most of our time doing is helping people with the skills to succeed in those squiggly careers. How do you transfer your talents? How do you make your strengths stronger? How do you explore and stay really curious about the possibilities in terms of how you do progress in your career? So that's what's really important. It's all about the how. We know all of our context. Your careers will feel varied, and I hope they feel fun and enjoyable, and that you've got lots of opportunity. And we really want to help you make the most of those opportunities, whilst also overcoming the inevitable obstacles and knotty moments that we all experience in our careers. There is no such thing as a straight line to success. I promise you, it doesn't matter who you are. And we've interviewed some incredible people for our podcast. There is no such thing as that sort of perfect swan-like career where everything goes to plan all of the time. It's much more about having the skills and the capabilities to make positive progress in those tough moments, but also to really make the most of all the incredible opportunities that we all now have in our squiggly careers. And I think you're going to hear some stories and some examples of how people are doing that today.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so if you haven't read Squiggly Career, I would definitely recommend. I'm not a book reader, but I did read that one and refer to it quite a lot because it just completely makes sense when you read it, and it's useful for everybody. Okay, so we're going to move over to our panelists now. First off, we've got Emily. Emily, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with user-centered design, the work that you've been doing, and what you plan to do moving forward?
Yeah, so my role sounds very kind of established in that kind of idea that it's there's probably a route that I took that was very clear, and now I'm head of the department, and that was really simple. But like my background was, I think of it as kind of a gentle squiggle. It wasn't that at any point I kind of made a decision to move across into design or research or anything. So my kind of background was I did a degree in Japanese. I moved to the Netherlands and I did a load of kind of odd jobs to do with languages and a bit of teaching and kind of copy editing. When I moved back to the UK about 10 years ago, I very coincidentally ended up working at a tech firm. Didn't really have the words for that at that point. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know what the possibilities were for roles either. Like nobody talked to me at school about content design, user research, UX, like any of that stuff at all. It just wasn't part of the lexicon. So it was a real kind of gradual move into the field and kind of bit by taking advantage of like, yeah, okay, I'll get involved in the website. You knew, and like, yeah, okay, I'll try that out, until I got to the point where I eventually found that like UX and UCD was words I could use to kind of talk about what I was doing. So yeah, a long way to sort of say it was a bit of a slow squiggling, yeah.
Okay, and UCD is kind of a program within Opencast. Can you just tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so what we do in user-centered design is try to help software and technology be built in a way that will make sense for people and be usable by people in the way that they need it. So rather than going, I've got a great idea for an app, it's going to do all these great things, and then putting it in front of people and them sort of going, I don't need it, I don't want it, I don't know how to use it, I can't use it. We work with design and research to find ways to make sure that the things that we're building work in the best possible way for people. So it's a really joined up effort with all parts of the business. We work really closely with developers and business analysts and all sorts of people. We certainly can't do this in isolation, but all with that effort of trying to make things that are going to work for people.
Okay, And where do you see this? How do you see this building? What do you see as the opportunities for others to get involved?
In like UCD?
Yeah.
I think it's still, it's an emerging field in many ways. And I think that's like the interesting bit of it. So when I was starting out, we would talk a lot about UX and UX design as a thing and as a field. Whereas now the way that we talk about the roles and the things that you can do in it, it's a lot more varied. We talk about content design, user research, all these different specialisms. So I think that in itself, and that will keep evolving, and kind of new roles will keep emerging in that. And I think that's really important for people to know. I think there's a bit of a mystique around lots of tech as an industry, and certainly around UCD and UX, that kind of keeps people a bit away from it. But I think, yeah, just knowing that there are different kinds of roles, there's different skill sets, there's different ways that you can approach it is, yeah, really important.
Perfect, thank you. Sinead, research scientist turned software developer, and now also a parent. So juggling that kind of busy family and very demanding job. Can you just tell us a little bit about why you chose to change career, and what are you doing? What do you do personally to help you balance that family work life?
So I was a research scientist originally, and that came from, I just was good at biology at school. So I just kind of like followed that through its like natural progression. Worked in biotech, was not particularly stimulated by it. And then was involved in an automation project that required me to like think a little bit about like automation, programming, and it like really lit a fire for me. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is what I should have been doing the whole time. So did a little bit of stuff online, but that was really hard to juggle with work. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things when you do, unlike Emily, for me, it was a much more abrupt career switch. Is like you kind of have to choose between like work or re-skilling. So that's what I had to do. So I went back to uni, did a conversion master's to become a software developer. And I was doing that I got a job, I was doing that for maybe it's like 3 or 4 years when my husband and I decided to become parents. And that in itself was a really challenging thing to do because I'd already switched once. I already felt incredibly behind everybody else, was trying to catch up with all my peers. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to take like 6 to 12 months off and put myself even further behind. So that was a big decision about kind of, was I ready to become a parent around this whole new job? And we decided it was just the right time for us. So I became a mum through adoption a couple of years ago, and that was an amazing experience, continues to be every day. And had 6 months off, did shared parental leave with my husband. So I took 6 months off, he took about 5.5 months off. And I came back and just kind of didn't really feel part of my team anymore. They got used to working without me. I tried to like catch up with all the technical stuff, but just really felt like I was working on my own to get caught up. So when I moved to Opencast, it's something that I talk to people a lot about, is how to return people from parental leave, how to support people in technical roles when they come back. I could chew your ear off about it for hours at a time. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about, and it's something that the people team at Opencast are really focused on at the moment, which is fantastic. But yeah, it's a big thing. It's a demanding job. I'm on calls a lot of the time. I'm having to like pair with people a lot, which involves being on calls and in meetings a lot of the time. And then there's also the requirement for like picking up nursery calls, or like doing the nursery pickup at the end of the day, and like being present for my kid when I'm there in the mornings and there at night. And that's been a juggle. Last year I tried compressed hours, that didn't work for me. I'm now working full-time, normal hours, and that does work for me. And it's about finding time for the gym and work and being a mum and seeing my friends every now and then. And it's kind of, you kind of just have to pick and choose. So it's like, I'll do this event, but the rest of the week I'll be at home with her, and maybe next week I'll go out for dinner with a friend. So it's about kind of finding that balance, and it's hard work, but it's super, super rewarding.
Yeah, it is. It's that prioritization, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
you've obviously got to think about your child, and yourself, and your job. So it's kind of prioritizing in that moment, isn't it? What needs the attention,
and it's constantly changing as well. The minute that you settle and you think, oh, I'm giving the right amount of time to work and my kid, you're suddenly like, oh, they're really ill, so I have to focus on them. And then you feel bad for your client team because you feel like you're letting them down because you've not been on calls as much as you would like. So yeah, it's a constant balance that's moving all the time.
Yeah. You mentioned when we were chatting that Opencast have a parent support network. Yeah, just want to quickly mention that.
Yeah. So I think there's a really important thing about supporting women and diverse genders, and parenting is a huge part of that. So we have our parental support group on Teams. And we've also got one for period and menopause support as well. So that's also quite helpful to support, you know, people who've got children that are about to hit the menopause, about to hit their periods, women that are about to hit the menopause, you know, talking about like real women's issues, real gender diverse issues that kind of, you feel like they hold you back from getting involved with work, and we're building that into work so people don't feel like they've got to choose. They can do it all and be truly themselves at work.
Yeah, which is excellent, and everybody should have that process within their organisation as well. 100%. Brilliant, thank you. Hazel.
Hello.
Escape room designer, balloon modeler, to name a couple of things. We'll come back to that. Do you just want to tell us about how you've ended up in the role that you're in, and how you've taken some of the skills that you've learned in your other careers into this one?
Yeah. Oh, it's always a trick thinking about balloon modelling and how that gets into research. But I will try and go chronologically. So I went to university. I was like, this is it, university, job, finished. But I really struggled with my mental health first year of university. So I failed out. And that's really hard when you're thinking about like, oh, this wasn't the path I was meant to take. I ended up working as a children's entertainer, doing sort of children's parties, balloon modelling, everything like that. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked that. When you're sort of working those kind of jobs, you end up taking a bunch of stuff on the side. So I ended up doing a lot of teaching English as a foreign language. I got really interested in that. A few years down the line, I decided to go back to uni to do education. While I was studying education, I got really into gamification of education, which was really big about the time that I was doing it. But actually it wasn't done very well by a lot of people. So I got really interested in that and really involved, and I ended up doing a postgrad course in technology and enhanced learning. After that, I sort of finished that. I decided to get involved in escape room design, having worked at an escape room. People don't know what an escape room is. Basically, you're locked in a room for about an hour and you have to solve puzzles and do things like that in order to escape. Great fun games, there are lots. There's one of mine over in Chesterley Street, if you ever want a trip. Jobs like that, you have to do freelance because there isn't much work for it. And when you're doing sort of freelance work, it is really hard to get contracts. It's hard to find that sort of stuff. I felt the old struggles of my mental health start to come back, and that kind of trying to prove yourself as a freelancer. So I decided to go back to uni, do some work in digital civics about applying technologies to community work. I've been sort of doing that with my escape room work. I've been working with people to design escape rooms. After that, I was like, okay, what do I do with this now? I felt like I was prepped. I felt like I'd know what I was doing. Luckily, I saw this role advertised as a user researcher. I went, great, I'll go for that. Oh, that will be great. And it was wonderful. I love research. There's something about it where you are finding out what people want and you are making things better for them. I'm visually impaired, so I can't see very well. And websites are often a struggle when you're visually impaired. You're like, why has no one shown this to a single disabled person? You could get that feedback. But at the same time, you're constantly asked what you think about things. You'll see lots of posts being like, tell us what you think, visually impaired people. And you'll be like, okay, but do you promise to make the changes this time, this one time? And you'll be like, maybe. So being a user researcher as part of that research and design process, asking people, making sure you implement that has been really important to me. At a certain point in that user research journey, my company said, we're going to make a bunch of people redundant. And I went, okay, someone was telling me about this PhD thing that I could do. Maybe I could try a different form of research. So I went and I did a PhD that was around how you use escape rooms for education and public health. taking some of my loves and combining them into one thing. And when that finished, I was like, actually, I really enjoyed user research way more than I think I enjoy academic research. Maybe I will return. And that is how I got here today. How did I use balloon modelling? Who knows?
Well,
give me a second.
You need to save that one for when we've had some beers and yeah.
And someone's got the balloons suddenly under a drawer somewhere.
Yeah, somebody will have them somewhere. Somebody's on their way to Tesco now.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
they need to see those. That's brilliant. You've had a great career so far. Obviously, chop and change here and there, but had a similar theme in the creative space. You touched on the fact that you're visually impaired. What support have you received from Opencast as an employer? And what would you suggest from any other employer to be able to do to support somebody in your situation?
So it's all about having like lots of touch points where people ask. And not only people ask, but you have the ability, the trust that you can go, I need this, and that someone will accommodate it. So I trust that if I said something to someone at Opencast, I went, I need this, they would say, okay, great, I'll do that 1 million times over. Yeah, I've worked other places where I've been worried that if I was too out about not being able to see well, that someone would, it would affect my job chances, it might affect my work. But also that I might say something and people would be like, oh, do you really need that? Like, is it really that important that you have a larger screen, or is it that important that you need this? And so it's knowing, having that relationship and being, I can ask for stuff and you're not going to say that's going to be a problem. So it's having those touch points, but also being accommodating, putting that work in.
Yeah, taking the time to understand, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And putting the practical things in place. Definitely, it's not a difficult thing to do, is it? Definitely not. Thank you. Judith, I'm going to move over to you, just making sure you're off mute, because we've been doing this for a couple of years now and I still forget regularly. So from chatting to you over the last couple of weeks, I think it's fair to say that you're very ambitious. You switched careers after having children. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that? And I'm really keen to understand what your secret is to keeping that motivation going when you've got kids at home that, you know, are very demanding on your time.
Okay. Yes, before that, I'll get a bit of background about myself, like how I became an agile delivery manager. I started my career as a college lecturer. So it was about 8 months I was in the teaching field, which I was passionate about. And after 8 months, I realized that teaching wasn't my calling, and I decided to explore the other options. So I joined a call center, hoping to gain some experience in the corporate world, where but it didn't last for long. Like I didn't feel that that's where I'm gonna be for a long run. So I always had this interest in the technology and want to pursue a career for it. So I decided to learn something to enhance my skills. So I decided to do a computer application program, the PG diploma in it. And while I was studying, I joined into a corporate world where again I was starting as an IT service desk, and then I picked up the service management roles and the Scrum Master. While I was a Scrum Master back in India, I was given an on-site opportunity to pick up a developer role, which I was passionate about because I was very passionate about the technical stuff. And since I was a Scrum Master, I was very much interested in the software development cycles, and I was very much interested in the technical side, and I was passionate to learn about it. So that's when I was like about 6 months pregnant, and during that time, my managers were very supportive on my growth and my development. They offered me an opportunity to travel abroad for the new role, which I had taken a small training for it. But that's something new for me. The developer role is very new to me. So they had that trust in me, and that was my huge confidence booster. So I came here to UK for this new developer role, and that was a period of peak time. I was working in a retail sector, so the December is considered as a peak sector. I mean, the peak period in the retail sector. So I was in kind of a bit of pressure to learn things quickly and deliver things. So once I was able to deliver it successfully, and I went on maternity leave and came back after 6 months, where I was getting the continuous support. So during the 6 months, and after that, after I joined my career after the parental leave, my partner and my managers and my family was really supportive. They were emotionally supportive, and they were my partner was helping me in the childcare responsibility and even the household responsibility, uh, and he was able to understand, he was listening to my concerns, my fears and aspirations, and offering me the reassurance and motivation. So as you all know, like, we all will have that imposter syndrome, and we'll feel inadequate, like whatever we deliver when we are switching the careers. We always have that imposter syndrome with us, and that was a real challenge for me to overcome that syndrome. So my family and my husband and my managers were really supportive in that area.
Yeah, you touched on imposter syndrome there. It is a thing, isn't it? It's a real thing.
Yeah.
What do you do to overcome that? What's your kind of go-to to reassure yourself that you are the right person for the job and you should be here and you add a lot of value to the team?
So what I decided is, whatever the work I do, I divide it into smaller chunks, and I started celebrating my small achievements to make me feel that I'm giving my best. So that's how, like, celebrate your achievements, or even the small milestones, or set milestones of your progress, even your learning. It can be a self-learning, even that can be achieving your milestones. So that's how I reassured myself that I'm giving my best, and that's how I overcome the imposter syndrome. So, and there is also a lot of things, like uh, when you switch from one career to a different one, then you will have to do the self realization, take time to reflect on what your career goals is going to be, and the aspirations, and what value it's going to bring to you and the organization as well. So that's how I started with my. I've been into multiple roles: Scrum Master, developer, and the technical program manager, and now the Agile manager. So all I do is I self reflect on what I want to become in the longer term, and then what my aspiration is, and what is a skill gap I have, and I do seek feedback to my managers and even my peers, and try to understand what are the areas I can be improved. And networking is also a very important thing, where you can build a relationship with the colleagues and mentor, where you can seek for the guidance and support throughout your journey. I also followed some of the footprints of my mentors, I would say, who had the similar kind of the Squiggly careers, where who were able to help me overcome that imposter syndrome, and they ensured me that I'm on the right path, and this is and they were continuously supporting me in my growth.
Perfect. Yeah, celebrate every success. The small wins lead to big wins. Yeah, I'm all about that. Everybody should, take pride in everything that they do. I always look at being part of a team as part of a jigsaw puzzle. And if you're the corner piece, you're just as important as the middle piece, because if you're not there, you can't get the job done, you can't finish it. So that's a brilliant piece of takeaway for me, to celebrate the wins. Sinead, if you were to give the audience a little piece of advice around anybody who was considering changing careers, what would that be?
It's really hard, and it's going to take quite a big commitment as well. But if you feel like it's the right time, and that's with any change really, like if you think now's the right time to become a parent, or to take a sabbatical, or to change jobs, like if it feels like the right time, it feels like it's something that you're passionate about, and you've got the means, to absolutely do it. Because like we were talking about before, you can't kind of predict what the future will bring. So don't worry about what's coming, because you don't really know what that is. So if something feels right, then just give it a go.
Yeah, definitely. Emily, you said that you did a degree in Japanese, did you? Yeah, absolutely. So you've not followed the traditional degree route that others might be taking. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's the way you're inclined and you go off and do a technical degree, brilliant. I will say that make sure you get some work experience to support that technical degree. Because that is the thing that's going to stop you from getting the job. What was that pinnacle moment? So you travelled, you did your degree, you went and travelled. What was that kind of moment that you thought, actually, this is my time, I need to think about something? You said that you joined a tech business by accident. What was that thing that made you think, actually, I'm in the right place, this is me?
That's a good question. I think I said it before, but honestly, like having the words to talk about what I was doing was hugely important and helpful for me. So I remember I was looking for another job. I had a title of web content officer, which and I found a job that I was like, oh, TikTok, this sounds amazing. And it had I can't even remember what that title was at the time. And that realization of like, oh, the words don't necessarily have to match, and there's probably new words that I need to learn to be able to articulate what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to do it, was really comforting and really reassuring. Yeah, like that was a huge part of it for sure.
Finding that kind of space to be able to
and also like honestly, the moment when I realized that tech was a problem and not me was and that is like a huge part of what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's just like, this stuff can be so much better.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning is knowing that you can make things better.
Yeah, or just a belief that it can be better.
It can be better, and you work out a way to make it better. Definitely. Hazel, should we come back to the balloon animals?
I reckon we should, but I think balloon animals is one thing, but children's parties are, I don't know if anyone's ever tried to run a children's party before, but they are the wildest thing. There's so much going on, and you want to like personally make everyone feel seen and important. I got a real skill for, I ran a 2-hour party learning 30 children's names at the start of that party, just for like to know what I'm doing, and like having those skills where you're like, how do I facilitate in this utter chaos? How do I get the vibe of a room? How do I figure out what teeny tiny humans want, and like what they really want sometimes is balloon laser guns. Sometimes they want balloon flowers, but often the laser guns. And being able to be like, okay, actually this is, I really enjoy doing creative stuff, working with people, finding out what they want. And that has really translated to a world where what I'm actually doing is running a lot of workshops, delivering training, doing interviews, and then implementing that into a design.
Yeah,
it does associate, but no one on my agile team has asked me to blow up a balloon. And it is those skills where you're like, okay, everything is, no matter how many like fail or what you might see as failures, things that didn't go right, like all of those were experiences that you can take forwards.
Yeah. But also, you said you weren't really sure how the balloon modelling helped you move into this career where the transferable skill was, but that kind of organizational skill, the ability to remember all of those names when you first meet them, and kind of maybe do you make a connection of what colour jumper they might have on, or how they've spoken to you, and kind of hang something on that so that you remember that kind of that skill in itself is massively transferable into the role that you do now. So there was a huge link.
And no one would say, oh yeah, you can definitely see that link between balloon modelling to tech user research for a tech company, but it happened.
Yeah.
whatever we say, it did in fact happen.
It absolutely did. It absolutely did, and you're proof that happened. Judith, what's next for you? So you're obviously ambitious. You've done a lot of study. You've moved around into different roles. What's next? Where do you see yourself going from here?
Currently, I'm a data delivery manager, so data seems to be very interesting to me now. So I started learning about data and the data analytics and how things are AI and other things. So I'm more interested in learning data at the moment. So yeah.
It's kind of be careful what you wish for. Yeah, I can see a lot of people going, right, okay, you're moving to my team. Okay, so one last thing, I'm just going to ask each panelist one bit of advice for the room. Emily.
One piece. If you're interested in switching careers, squiggling careers, I think it's really important to try to find people who do that job and find out what the day-to-day is like, what is the actual job like, and use them for all your questions and finding out questions that you didn't even know that you had. You can do that through just like reaching out to random people online, asking friends of friends, asking out like, does anybody know who works in this particular field or like this area that I don't even have the words for yet? Or there's like mentoring websites online you can sign up to, but any way of just getting more information is going to make that decision making and choices much easier.
Perfect, thank you. Hazel.
I think sometimes there's trusting your body and going, if something really doesn't feel right, if you're somewhere where you're like, I could do something better, something different, I just don't want to do this, then respect that feeling and go, well, what else could I do?
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, so if you switch or squiggle, there's a lot of fear involved with that, and you're going to feel that fear quite intensely a lot of the time. Share with the people around you. You'll find that they have fears that are either similar to yours or in different areas, and you can build each other up and just feel the fear a little bit and see where it takes you, because it's a scary thing to do, but it's incredibly worthwhile. So feel it, but don't focus on it for too long.
Perfect, great advice. Judith.
Perseverance and growth mindset. These are essential when navigating a career switch within the tech industry. So I feel like with determination and continuous learning and leveraging your transferable skills, you can overcome these struggles and succeed.
Absolutely. I'd agree with everything that everybody said there. I think there's never a wrong time. You're never too old. I'm testament to that. I've changed careers quite a lot. There's always somebody to ask. There's always somebody to ask. Get some advice. Get a mentor is a brilliant piece of advice, I would suggest as well. Find somebody who's working in the space that you want to move into. If you don't know where you want to move to, just chat with loads of people. Get yourself along to networking events. Meet people, ask the question, find out what people love about their job, how they got into their job. I'll guarantee you that 90% of the people that you speak to haven't gone that linear route. Everybody's done this a little bit, or some people have done this quite a lot, moved around. But yeah, definitely suggest that you do that. So that's a little bit of a link back to Sarah Ellis, who is going to talk to us about the Squiggle and Stay programme that Opencast is part of.
Thank you. And firstly, just wanted to say thank you to all of those incredible Squiggly Career stories. I was making notes. I was like, yeah, that's a brilliant point. These people could have written our book for us. Why did we make all the hard work happen? We should definitely just co-create and crowdsource our next book, because there are so many words of wisdom from everybody there. So thank you. It's really inspiring to just hear those and to hear those personal stories. So let's talk about Squiggle and Stay. So Squiggle and Stay is a global experiment programme that Opencast applied for and were successful in their application. And there were lots of applications, so no mean feat to be part of the 16 organisations that were selected for our first year. And the way this programme works is we asked organisations who are committed to creating a squiggly career culture where people can transfer their talents to sign up to a few things. Firstly, to running at least 3 experiments over 12 months. Secondly, being open with those experiments, because inevitably some experiments work and some experiments fail. And if none of them fail, we're not doing a good job of experimenting properly. And thirdly, to borrow brilliance from each other. So we've got so many different sectors and types of company represented as part of the programme. So everybody from BBC to Pfizer to charities in British Red Cross and Macmillan, London Business School, the NHS, Danone. So they're all very global, they're very different. Some of those organizations have got hundreds of thousands of people. And some of those organizations are much smaller and are maybe growing very fast. So everybody has their own dynamics that they bring to the Squiggle and Stay program. But the essential thing about it is that we are learning by doing. So I think it's so easy in this area to talk a good game, but then not to do anything differently. And if we don't learn by doing, nothing changes. And so what we really wanted to do was to support people to, we call it Squiggle and Stay, or if you read the Harvard Business Review article, they call it Reimagine Retention, because we cannot get them to put Squiggly in the title yet. Nearly, we're very close, but not quite. And so what we are learning from everybody is what works, what doesn't, and also really hearing from the employees or colleagues of those organizations, what do they want? How can we build better experiments? What ideas have they got? And we are creating an ideas bank of every experiment that every one of those 16 organizations are running. And we are really learning as we go. And at the moment, we are about 6 months into the experiments with everybody. We've got our first in-person event next week. We've had lots of events together virtually, and we are right in the messy middle of it all. So, you know, we're sort of over the honeymoon period of the excitement of getting started. Most organizations are 1 or 2 experiments in, and every organization are having their own wins along the way. And really important that we celebrate those, exactly as you heard from Judith and from the team. And we're also all having challenges too. And those challenges are different depending on cultures and how the first experiments are going, senior sponsorship, time, all the typical constraints that you would imagine. But what I have been incredibly impressed by is firstly, everybody's reaction. People are so open to Squiggly Careers, to transferring their talents and to trying out different ways to make that happen. Exactly as you've heard today, curious career conversations, a great way to figure out, do you want to Squiggle and Stay? What might that look like? How might you do that? So lots of organizations experimenting with curious career conversations, organizations experimenting with sharing Squiggly Career stories, exactly like you've heard today, with secondments. One of my favorite ideas is career safaris, where you get holiday, but you use that holiday to go and spend time holidaying in user design or in going to work as a Scrum Master for a week or 2 weeks. And that's proving really popular because then people are getting to live and breathe the reality, but by dipping a toe in the water. And then if you decide after dipping the toe in the water that you've learned a lot, but actually now you've realized what life is like in marketing or procurement, it's not for you. That's okay too, because worst case scenario, you've created some really good connections, you've learnt, you've been a beginner again, which is very good for our brains, and we don't do that often. And what we're finding is it's giving people the confidence to talk out loud about things that they are curious about Squiggle and Stay, about developing in different directions, not feeling like what they've done so far then informs or limits what they will do in the future. So we're getting so much support. Managers are doing a brilliant job of kind of having different sorts of career conversations with people as well, because managers, we're finding, are a really big enabler in making this happen. If everybody wants to keep their people where they are, obviously that limits people's learning. But equally, in some organizations, certainly, we're having to undo an awful lot of history. Less so for someone like Opencast, but I come from the world of Sainsbury's that's 150 years old, Barclays that's been around for hundreds of years, where people have got very used to working in a certain way. So sometimes we're really challenging conventions, we're challenging systems and structures, which is always hard to do. But the thing that I have seen really consistently, and that gives me an awful lot of hope, is individually, people have a really create, don't wait mindset when it comes to their careers. People want to squiggle with success. They are prepared to take ownership. They are prepared to experiment, as long as they've got the right support around them. That can be from a peer, that might be from how something's set up, like a safari or a secondment, so you can go and sort of have a go. And what's brilliant about it is, as we are tracking, so many of the experiments are working, at least to some extent. You know, we are starting to see what works. We're starting to see what works less well. There is nothing so far that's been a spectacular failure, but it's always more interesting if you get at least one. So something along the way probably will fail, I'm sure. And we will finish those first sets of experiments in November, December, and we will release publicly everything that we find. So we continue to facilitate, do lots of designing, lots of trying things out. If you have ideas of things that we should be trying in Opencast, in other organisations, generally, have you thought about? I would always love to hear from you. Our job really is to prompt, to be a sort of provocateur, often to give people some nice nudges to make sure these things are happening, and to make sure that we are upskilling people so they can transfer their talents with confidence. As we have heard today, we don't want gremlins, we call them gremlins, those beliefs that hold us back. We don't want gremlins to be the reason that people don't squiggle with success, thinking I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or I couldn't possibly make this work with the rest of the things that are important to me in my life. And so we really want to make sure we're not sort of holding ourselves back. So we're doing some work with organisations on that. How do we help people with that? Having the skills, the tools and the techniques. But the main message really is that we are just seeing experimenting is a really big theme now in Squiggly Careers, whether that is company-wide experiments or whether that is you seeing your career as a series of experiments. And what's most important about an experiment is not whether it succeeds or fails, is that you learn from it. And we know that self-awareness and action together is what makes for a successful Squiggly career. If you have the awareness but no action, nothing changes. If you take the action without the awareness, something changes, but it might not be the right thing. So having that experimenting mindset is something that we're really interested in. And it's brilliant that organisations, including Opencast, are part of such an open approach to learning by doing, which is quite scary, and it's no mean feat to get involved in it. And so I'm so proud of the progress that everybody has made so far. I feel very humbled by it, and I'm really looking forward to the next 6 months and seeing where these experiments take us, and also continuing to share all the results very openly in a really transparent way so we can make careers better for everyone, which is our mission, and that's what we exist to do.
Brilliant, thanks, Sarah. If somebody was to have an idea or suggestion, how do they get in touch?
They can just email me directly. I'm Sarah with a H at amazingif.com. And if for whatever reason you forget that, find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, mention Squiggle and Stay. I'd love to hear from anyone about any ideas to do with Squiggly Careers. Tell me what you need. Tell me what you've not got. Tell me the podcast that you need us to record. We're 350 episodes in. We do one every week. I need ideas for new episodes. So you tell me what you need to support you for your Squiggly career, and I will do my best to make it happen.
Perfect, thank you. And I think somebody in Opencast will have details for Sarah as well, if we can share them around.
Of
Brilliant.
course.
Thank you very much. I think we're ready for audience questions now. If anybody has any. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It probably touches on roughly around what Sarah said in 2013, maybe 2012 to 13 for me. I was working as a project manager and thinking, I do not want to do dashboards and reporting anymore, and I'm done with that. But there was no opportunity to switch. I did eventually switch, and actually happened to be a conversation over tea, over a cup of tea in the morning. So it wasn't something that I could have just done easily. It would just happen to be a conversation I was having with someone. Why do you think there's more opportunity now for people to be able to go into these frameworks and squiggle or change their careers that we didn't see like you touched on, Sarah, like 10, 15 years ago, say, when I was a project manager? Crawling out there.
Is that a question for Sarah?
Sarah, and any of the panel that maybe you think they know why.
Do you want me to go, maybe if I go first and then see people can share their personal experiences. I think in 2013, what we found was a real divide. So when we talked to individuals about this move away from ladder-like careers, the legacy of the ladder, to Squiggly Careers, individuals nodded their head. Organisations didn't. So that actually there was a real gap between organisation, systems and structures and individuals, because individuals in 2013, when we said, describe your career in 2 or 3 words, variety, change, unpredictable, the same words that we get now. But I think organisations were still quite hierarchical. There was quite a lot of layers and levels. And that process of kind of moving to more agile organisations, flatter organisations, more cross-functional working was starting, but wasn't quite at the point where people were transferring their talents. People did go up in ladders. I was unusual. I moved from marketing to head of corporate responsibility in Sainsbury's, having never worked in CR before. And I was a real lone wolf. You know, they were like, Sarah's weird. She's sort of a lone wolf, I was always an anomaly. I was always kind of slightly left field, but sort of somebody's got to be first, right? So where I went, people did slowly start to follow back in 2013. And then actually probably about 3 or 4 years after that, so many more organizations started to see, I think, the value that they gained from people transferring their talents. They started to accept some of the data, depending on what they were driven by, the data around, oh, people are going to be working 4 or 5 different types of career. What people want. So if you want engaged employees, you need to be upskilling people, letting people develop in different directions. And then there's the need of organizations in the main are getting much, much flatter. So progression can't only mean promotion. We have to help people to grow and learn and develop in ways that go much beyond and are much more creative than, oh, that has to be a more senior job title. I remember the days of getting a more senior job title, but being paid no more money in some examples, just because they were like, oh, that's a quick fix in terms of helping people progress. Those things are starting to disappear now. And so I now think we do have, and I do think this was accelerated a bit by the pandemic, there's sort of much more parity in the organisations and individuals now all really sort of accept that squiggly careers are everybody's reality. The point is, okay, so what do we do about that? And how do we help people to navigate those careers? So I think actually give credit to individuals. I think individuals got there a lot quicker than organisations, but we do now spend very little time convincing people about squiggly careers. That's something we used to do, but in our organisation now, I'm rarely selling squiggly as an idea. What I'm selling is, well, how do you support people and how do you upskill people? So I think perhaps that's the difference.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, I definitely think there's been a move away from it's the individual and the individual's responsibility only to make sure you thrive within a job. Like you are the only one who can make your career worth it. But actually I'm seeing way more this idea of actually, you know, the organization, the team, like we can all work together to make sure you can be the best version of yourself. And actually being the best version of yourself, thriving somewhere, doesn't just mean like you have been completely prepped for this one role. Like you went to user researcher school and then ended up as a user researcher. Doesn't help that that sort of role didn't really exist 10, 15 years ago. And so I think if you realize that people can become amazing, not just by being responsible for themselves, you can actually allow people who come from different backgrounds, who have different needs, who maybe didn't see themselves working in a tech role. You can allow those people to really be a great person there. And that's from how you set up those structures of support within an organisation.
Yeah. It's all about the environment. Yeah.
I had a slightly more cynical view.
Ooh,
I agree with all of that, but I think the timeline's really interesting. So 2008, financial crisis. More recently, would we call it financial crisis? Yeah, ongoing like kind of financial crises amongst many other things. And it's not the only thing, but I think the economic reality is important, and it's interesting to think about that trajectory. So that when I was graduating, my kind of peers who graduated in a few years that I did, around when I graduated in 2009, all graduated. And to your point, Hazel, of like, I'm going to leave university and get a job. Where? Like, where was actually like you know, relatively where I was hiring at that point. And that shift has taken a lot of time to kind of see itself through. But it's one of the things I think that has had some kind of impact, is having this cohort of people who are like either pushed out of jobs at that time or trying to get into jobs, and that shaking things up quite a lot, and then seeing that repeated in the last 3 years as well. It's mega interesting.
Definitely not everyone squiggles because
They
they're
would
following
like
things.
to,
Some
yeah.
people do just squiggle because that was a necessity at the time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I also see that there are changing workforce dynamics, like people are now seeking meaningful and fulfilling work that aligns with their interest and area they're passionate about. So they're trying to explore new career paths and make the transition more of the job satisfaction. This shifting mindset has created more open and an accepting environment for the career switches, even with the organization. Like for example, like the technology advancements, where we have new technologies, where artificial intelligence or cybersecurity or blockchain. So these have opened up some new avenues for the professionals to transition into the new roles, and the digital transformation across the industries that has also created a huge demand in the individuals and providing more opportunities for the career switches.
Definitely. That's a really good point, actually. Technology is moving so fast, it's opening up loads of different opportunities.
Especially after the pandemic and everybody wanted everything yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Kate, have you got a question?
Yeah, I guess one reflection I was going to have also on like what drives it is that when you think about what more and more organizations want from their most senior leaders, they also now want people that haven't got linear experience. So I think there's also kind of that's driving the recognition that these squiggly paths have value, not just when you're in the sort of middle of it, but also if you think about who are our future CEOs going to be. And I think sometimes like culturally, actually, in the UK, maybe just generally in a sort of slightly Anglo-American world, we're behind the game on this. Like Japanese companies, for example, will tell you very clearly that they purposefully move people through, you know, finance, HR, like these different roles, because the person, and it's almost like you can observe it from the outside, like, oh, this is the person that they're planning to be the CEO, and therefore they are going to make sure that they have a rounded perspective on kind of how these things are interconnected. And I think that's sort of like something that we can kind of learn. Sometimes we actually have quite a narrow, if you look at the backgrounds of like FTSE 100 CEOs, historically that's pretty narrow. And I think we all recognize that actually, like, is the FTSE outperforming everyone else? Not really. So there's some interesting kind of, I guess, cultural recognition of diversity of thought, diversity of perspectives in those leadership roles can actually be built through purposeful squiggles. So I think that's maybe one additional point around why is it happening more. I think organizational design, like the sort of strategic level, and organizations are looking and going, we should be encouraging this because it builds our leadership strength hugely. So, I mean, I'm very excited to hear from the four of you guys, because what amazing leadership strength you're building with all those different experiences, you know, wherever you choose to go next. But also I think, you know, if anyone's sitting there with a very linear path and you're ambitious, you actually might want to consider, okay, what do I not know? Because where should I potentially at least do a bit of an experimentation, as per Sarah's point, because then you can draw on that for that next step. So equally, don't get stuck in a linear path if you actually think you might want to go sort of to the very top of leadership.
Definitely. We've got 2 minutes left, so we've got time for one more question. Can we take one from online? I know we've got some online.
So we've had through, can you give any useful advice for someone looking to enter the field of content design with a background in education? Seems like an Emily question.
Yes. Yeah. This is going to be off the top of my head, but I'm more than happy to chat to that person afterwards or another time or something. But again, I go back to, like, if you can, I think it's really useful to find someone who is a content designer and work with them and kind of help them to help you identify the transferable skills and then word them in a way that makes sense for the industry. So if you're recrafting your CV, you might, like, in education, I'm assuming, like, as a teacher, you must have amazing stakeholder management skills, like amazing communication skills. You just might talk about them as being like, I work with, I present to governors regularly, or I do kind of parent-teacher stuff. So find someone who can help you reword that into these phrases like stakeholder engagement, stakeholder management, and things that are gonna, so when someone looks at your CV, they can sort of go tick, 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 tick.
Perfect, thank you. Sadly, we're out of time, but I do know that there's some time for networking. There's some, you might have already spied the wine and the beer and the food over there. So I would encourage you to stay. And I believe that there's another event on later on, Julie. Yeah. So if you're around, stay for that as well. One more thing before we finish. You've all got a flyer. This is a shameless plug, but it's all part of the greater good. You've all got a flyer on your chair. Tech Talent Live is happening on Thursday at the Baltic Centre for Contemporary Art, which I've struggled to say all week because I want to say the Baltic Flour Mill. Thursday 12:30 till 6. Opencast have got a stand, as well as lots of other amazing businesses, all with job opportunities, training opportunities, or even just opportunities to chat to people to understand whether there's a different role for you if you're looking to change career. So we'd love to see you all there. You can register, or you can just log up. It's up to you. I'd like it if you could register, because it would just reduce my anxiety a little. So that's the end of the panel. I'd like you to give a warm round of applause to all of our panel members. And can we also give us a round of applause to Julian, who's been the absolute taskmaster in keeping this on time. For the last few weeks, we've been having discussions, and he's definitely kept me on track. So if we can just give... I'm sure you're all staying around. I'm not sure about Sarah and Judith, whether you're going to hang around, or if it's practical to hang around online. For any questions, just loom. Otherwise, if there are any questions directly for each of you, then we can share contact details or pass them on somehow. But I'm guessing you guys are going to hang around a little bit for anybody who's got any questions. And lastly, a warm round of applause for all of you for being such a wonderful audience.